Hey, everybody. Welcome to the HIT.OR.DIE Podcast. We're here with your hosts, Jake Saldotti and Chad Rawford.
Hello.
Again, thank you for episode 100. That was an awesome episode with our boys at Barrel House. Thanks for having us there. And you guys continue to support Spreaker, YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio,
All of it.
Spotify.
Yeah, all your podcast apps. We actually missed, and I apologize, a shout out from Adam Munoz as a fan of the podcast. And 100, we were throwing shout outs to some people's favorite guests. And he was, want to say he loved Ron Scott and Eric Solberg. Loves all the episodes, but I wanted to make sure we reached out and said thank you to Adam for his message to us. And then other news, and we haven't talked about it. I don't know what's all the details on what's happening with it, but a couple weeks back, Jordan Luplow kind of teased us with a new pair of cleats, a couple pairs of cleats with a nice little clean logo, and somebody's getting branded. So
The JL brand.
I'm excited to see more.
It looks sick.
It does.
The brand looks sick.
It's an excellent logo.
I'm excited to rock it.
Yes.
I'm excited to see him have a great season because there was something on social media.
Yes. Another podcast, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
You're talking about that?
Yeah, because I might be in on it.
The host, I want to say it's officially unofficial podcast. Jordan's been on there. I think he's a friend of the host. And the deal was that if Jordan hits 20 home runs, he will be getting a tattoo of Jordan's brand or logo on his arm, I believe.
His forearm, yeah.
And it's a nice logo.
It is. I put it out there that I might be interested in that.
You told him that?
No, I told you that.
Oh, well, now you're putting it out there.
No, you told him that too.
Did I tell him? Oh, the text
night.
message just like, yeah. I did say that?
Yeah, you did. You said Roth might want to get in on it.
Yeah, I threw you under the bus.
Which I might, but he might have to get 50 homers, and then I'll do that.
I'm all for 50 homers. No, it's a sweet logo, and go follow Jordan Luplow. All the guys, Dylan Lee, I think said all of them.
He's having a good camp.
Yeah. You got
Brogdon, Marcus.
Yep, we got a fantastic guest today. Growing up was really one of the few times I was into basketball. Again, that mid '90s, late '90s, especially the Bulldogs. They were again a tough ticket to get. Coach Tarkanian had brought in some monstrous talent, a lot of first and second round picks. Yeah, Chris Herren is going to be our guest today, former Bulldog, and Chad's got the full bio on him.
Yeah, I know you guys are thinking basketball. Chad, you hate basketball. Well, I didn't back in the 90s and early thousands when selling was sold out, and I had season tickets with my grandpa. And
and people that listen, if you've gone, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
to the younger guys, they're not going to know, and that sucks. I wish they could have that experience.
100%. If you grew up going to Selland, you know exactly. And if you grew up going to Save Mart Center, I apologize. You didn't get to experience it. It was something else. It was something different. It was something magical. But yeah, Chris Herren, he's definitely my favorite player at Fresno State. One of the reasons, like, I love 24. He was number 24. Yeah, an amazing guest. I can't wait to get him on. He's from Fall River, Massachusetts, a standout at Durfee High School. He was a McDonald's All-American, Boston Globe and Gatorade Player of the Year. He was a central figure in a book about Durfee High School entitled Fall River Dreams. Chris was widely recruited, turned down offers Duke, Kentucky, Texas, Florida. He went to Boston College out of high school, came to Fresno State to play for legendary coach Jerry Tarkanian, was first-team All-WAC in 98. In 99, he was a second-round pick, 33rd overall by the Denver Nuggets. Also played for Boston College.
Boston Celtics.
Sorry. He did play for Boston College.
He did play for Boston College.
Played 7 years overseas in Italy, Poland, Turkey, China, Germany, and Iran. He's the author of a book, Basketball Junkie. Check it out. Motivational speaker, traveling all over the U.S., speaking to schools, 1 million students nationwide, major league sports teams, collegiate sports teams, founded the nonprofit Herren Project, which is also HerrenProject.org in 2011 and in 2018. He founded Herren Wellness, which is herrenwellness.com. Go check that out. A residential health and wellness program. He has been featured in Sports Illustrated, Rolling Stone, on TED Talks, ESPN's Emmy-nominated 30 for 30 documentary Unguarded, and in 2019 released The First Day Wellness and Harmful Behaviors, which is the firstdayfilm.com. Last but certainly not least, and probably the most important, celebrated 12 years of sobriety on August 1st, 2020, knocking on the door of 13 years coming up. And probably his biggest accomplishment will be being on the HIT.OR.DIE podcast.
I think his sobriety was probably number one.
No, I'm just kidding. But this is huge. I can't wait to talk to him, and we're kind of going to get a different perspective of, Tark and
his time as a dog.
Exactly, which should be a lot of fun.
There's some interesting stuff too. Like I was going to say, his brother went to BC. He went to Boston College. His son went to Boston College. And, the one thing I was going to mention was the NIT, right? Because Fresno State got hounded by the media. There was just not a great rap on that team. And granted, they had their issues off the court. But when in 98, I think it was, they played Minnesota, lost in overtime in the semis, and Minnesota went on to win the NIT tournament, which they had to vacate for NCAA rules violations. I just thought that was funny.
Well,
no, what I'm saying is,
it sucks though, because they could have played for the championship.
For sure, but Fresno State wasn't the only team that was fighting the NCAA.
Yeah,
and again, we'll talk about it a little bit. I'm sure with how the NCAA came at, was.
Yeah, we'll get his perspective.
Tark was on their radar pretty much his whole career. So.
Yeah.
But we're excited to have Chris Herren on. Hope you enjoy it. We'll be right back with Chris Herren. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the HIT.OR.DIE Podcast. We're joined today by Mr. Chris Herren. Thank you for coming on with us today, Chris.
No, thanks for having me.
Growing up here in Fresno, especially your time with the Bulldogs, it was literally the hottest ticket to come by. I was probably in junior high, and I remember, my dad fighting like a dog to get tickets to go to games, and just some of the great memories I have. We're not huge basketball fans now as adults, but I just remember that time in Fresno, how big you guys were, the players that Tark had brought in, and the success you guys had. Coming from BC, you had the broken wrist in your first game, and then you have the positive drug tests. And I want to know, were you done with basketball at that point? Where was your head at?
So, I wasn't done with basketball. In hindsight, I look back and I threw such a curveball into my own world, but everybody who loved me, right? I went from being this heavily recruited McDonald's All-American, Sports Illustrated, photo taking, to, my parents waking up that, their 19-year-old son is testing positive for cocaine. So my world flipped upside down in 1994, drug use, and really there wasn't much talk about it. The stigma was very, 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 very thick at that time. So I think, once I broke my wrist and tested positive for cocaine at BC and basically made a decision to leave there, myself included, but it was everybody around me just kind of hoped that it was like a phase that would go away.
Yeah, no, and the other thing I was going to ask you too, so, and at that time, you've talked a lot about, the disease and everything, so maybe it wasn't a highlighted thing back then, but, you have numerous failed drug tests. At what point does BC did they ever help you to get treatment, or was they considering help you getting another chance?
No, I think so. BC, it wasn't even about chances, right? It was just a 3-strike penalty. Okay. And I look back on it. I've been asked that question a million times. How did BC handle it? How did Fresno handle it? And it was completely opposite ends of the spectrum, right? BC was more of a punitive, we're going to scare you by punishing and setting up sanctions around it. Where Fresno was like, we gotta throw everything at this kid to get help. From counseling to inpatient to outpatient. Fresno did everything. Fresno was much further along on substance use and how to manage it appropriately than Boston College was.
And so you get the call from Coach Tarkanian, and I've seen you talk about, you really don't remember much of the conversation, but, your first impressions of maybe getting to Fresno, and I know, watching the documentary, watching Unguarded, it was it was going to be short-lived until Heather kind of talked you through it. What was that all about?
Yeah, so, I'm a kid from the East Coast, and, Coach Tark, who's, sadly, kids today don't even know him. But to me, he was a legend, and the fact that this legend, had confidence in me and wanted me to be part of his story, I was all for it. So I bought in immediately. I had never heard of Fresno, didn't know of Fresno. The first time I ever heard of Fresno was when Coach Tark mentioned Fresno State. So I jumped on the plane and I came out. I had to come out early. I had to enroll in Fresno City College. I had to start taking classes. And, I get there and my apartment is set up for me. I have the keys to it, but there's no electricity. There's no furniture. And, I was like, I don't think I can manage this. I don't think I can live in Fresno. And so I immediately had thoughts of going home. My wife at the time, not at the time, she was my friend, my childhood girlfriend. She talked me off the ledge, and, the next morning I woke up in an empty house with no light, and, Coach Tark and the staff started, making it right.
Can you get into a little bit of your relationship with Coach? I know you guys were pretty close, and,
super close.
It almost looks like another
father figure.
Right.
Yeah, I think he could have, because of Coach Tark's age at the time, right? I threw so much at him. He was another guy who he just loved me so much that he just hoped that it would go away. And guys during that era, that time, like, drug use wasn't in the headlines, right? It wasn't as talked about as it is today. It wasn't, it really at that time, it wasn't even considered an illness. He wanted so badly for me to be okay. He wanted so badly for me to settle in and get this under control. And, I struggled, and, but thankfully because of his support and, guys like Ed Ferreira, who was the trainer at Fresno State, and, there was so many people that, tried to wrap their arms around it while I was there.
So you get to Fresno, and then you have to sit out your first season. What was that like personally, and also for your game?
It was the best thing I ever did. I mean, it was, it gave me a chance to land. And it gave me a chance to really focus on myself, get away from the stress and pressure of performing. It was a year off. And, when you've been under the spotlight since you were 13 years old, and, here you are, 3,000 miles away from home, and, people have somewhat forgotten about you, and, you don't have the pressure of performing night in and night out. And so it was a phenomenal year. I got to know the community. I got to be part of the community. I, had unbelievable mentorship with John Welch, who was an assistant coach at Fresno at the time, who was sober. And, he guided me. And, it's funny, like I tell my kids, like, if you look at a picture of me that first year playing basketball at Fresno State, and then go to my final year, I almost look like a different person. my body type, the way I was progressing. That sophomore year at Fresno, I was completely immersed into basketball and working out and training and healthy and my diet and nutrition. I look like a soldier, where my senior year I looked, like I didn't have much interest in basketball.
Now, and you get to come back. I think it was 96 the actual first year you played at Fresno, 96, 97.
Yep.
You guys get to go back home, and you put the whooping on UMass. How anxious were you there?
Super anxious, because I believe, I'm almost positive. The game before UMass was University of Oregon at University of Oregon, and it was like my first big game. I walked into that arena thinking like, the fans are going to leave me alone. Nobody knows me. I'm going to sneak up on people. And during warm-ups, the student section started counting my shots in warm-ups. And I think by the time the buzzer went off to start the game, I think the fans had me at like 4 for 40. And they were in my head before the game started, and I was like, oh, fuck. I got no shot. And University of Oregon put like this 6'6", 6'7" athletic guard on me that just draped me the whole time, and I was terrible. I was absolutely terrible. And I had to fly cross country, with a lot of self-doubt. And, I was like, now I'm going back to play in my hometown against an unbelievable team on ESPN, and I suck. And, I don't know if I can do this. And, I contemplated, after that Oregon game, I contemplated shutting it down and being like, I'm not good enough for this level. And that's the difference, right? So I deal with the anxiety, I deal with the pressure, and I walk onto that court, and the basketball god, the first shot went down. And, the rest kind of became history after that.
Yeah, I remember the Fresno State games. I know at least at Selland Arena, that was the spot. And the best part about that was when you guys first came out of the tunnel and you did your first lap around the court, and where the fans could actually be right there next to you guys. And then that Mortal Kombat. I mean, that was just – that got it going, and the TARC meter is just going. And so I know you probably had a blast playing at Selland with the fans there.
Well, one of my favorite parts of Unguarded, I was telling Chad earlier, no shit, I get chills every time when you come back in the documentary to Selland, an empty Selland, and you're scanning the building and you're talking about the energy of that place and seeing faces in the seats. Like, I get chills because I remember being there watching, you guys play, and Dominic Young. And I mean, no joke, that place was sold out and like you said, that kids today don't know TARC, but as a kid, the TARC meter, and that place was sold out every game.
Yeah.
No, listen, it was, I say this all the time, right? People are like, why Fresno, right? Like, why, like you were recruited by Texas, Florida, Kentucky, like, why Fresno? And, first answer is Coach TARC, right? But then, because they had the best fans in the country, you know what I mean? Like, there was no doubt, like, the fans in Selland Arena, Fresno State, the community, the way they embraced it, the way they got behind it. Like, I feel bad. I feel bad for my son. My son, he went to BC and then he transferred to San Diego. Like, nobody, like, for kids to never get that experience, right? For college kids who never get that experience is, that's, to me, where the magic is. And, the Fresno State fan base was the best that I've seen, right? And we played in a lot of big games, in a lot of arenas where we were public enemy number one coming into town. And nobody matched the fans in Selland.
Yeah, those are just some great memories that I have. And I know, Chad, you guys were season ticket holders, weren't you?
Yeah, we were like 10 rows up on the visitor side. But, yeah, those memories are priceless.
He's not going to tell you, Chris, but you were his favorite player.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I hope so. I wear 24. I only played basketball till my sophomore year. I'm like a slow white guy, so I knew basketball really wasn't my thing. So I had to stick to baseball. But 24,
all right.
I wore 24 because of you, or one of the reasons because of you.
And then Paul George came in and had to kind of steal the thunder.
Hey, but that just goes as the tradition of good.
Hey, but your numbers
24.
up in the rafters, technically, right?
Yeah. yeah.
You and Tark,
Paul George didn't put the blood, sweat, and tears into Fresno like that 24 did. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different time too. Like I said, I've been to a couple since, and we love Fresno State, everything Fresno State, and we support all their athletic programs, no doubt. And I want to see them all win. It's just that time was there was so much life and energy. And you know, like football's big around here. The baseball's had some success, but literally those 4, 5, 6 years, the time Tark was here, it was the ticket to get. Like they were seriously tough to get tickets to those games. You know, and the other thing I was going to mention too, and you know, the media was pretty rough on you guys because Tark gave a lot of guys opportunities, and you know, into like the nitty gritty a little bit at your time at State. You guys were loaded, like so many first and second round picks. It's unreal, and then to never get to the tourney, 4 NITs in a row. Was there too much talent? Was there too much egos? Was there? I mean, just curious. That's
probably a little bit of both, right? I mean. Too much talent, too much ego, too many personalities, too many problems. You know, there was always something, right? There was always something, you know, there was always somebody suspended, somebody had to sit out, you know, not enough time to create that camaraderie, that unity. I think a lot of us, you know, looked at Fresno as a launching point for the NBA, and when you have players with that mentality, like I'm only here for a little bit and it's just going to get me to where I need to go, you know, that's where, you know, you lose the bigger games, the tougher games, the teams against teams that have that culture. You know, in hindsight, there was a couple of years, I believe, that the NCAA screwed us, right? I think we had some big wins in big moments, and I think, you know, we were at 21, 22 wins, 21-9, something like that, where I think we definitely could have got a bid, but the NCAA chose not to. So,
how much of that was them not being a fan of Coach Tarkanian, though? They seem to be.
I think it played a huge part.
You know, they seem to come down on him a lot, even, you know, obviously at UNLV, but it never stopped.
No, I think he was the first coach to win the lawsuit against the NCAA.
That's right.
So, and that was settled when he was at Fresno. So, you know, there was a lot of other factors that played into it. But we also played in a really tough league. Like, you know, when you think about it, right, you jump on the plane, you go to Utah, you got Andre Miller, Michael Doliak, and Keith Van Horn. And then from there, you know, you're going to UNLV with Sean Marion, Keon Clark, Tyrone Nesby, 3 NBA players. And, you know, and then you're jumping into, you know, the Michael Ruffin at Tulsa and that Tulsa group with Bill Self. And, you know, it was a very talented, there was a lot of NBA basketball players coming out of the WAC at that time. You know, BYU was always a tough program. The long trip to Hawaii was always difficult. So there was a lot of talent in that league, and, you know, it was probably not getting the recognition as it should have by the NCAA.
No, that's a great point too. You know, and the other, like I said, the media you had the 60-minute special. You know, then the B has the point shaving thing come out, and that gets publicized. I mean, through all of this stuff, you know, I think Dominic did a little piece on that a couple of years ago on the this point shaving thing. And I loved your bit on that too. I read some stuff on it like, okay, if you guys have all this proof, where's it at? Let's see it. You know?
Right.
But through all the distraction, you guys, I think your 3 years there that you played, I think you guys won over 60 games.
Yeah, like, listen, the whole thing, you got to, it's considered point shaving if your friend calls you and says, hey, we guys think you're going to win tonight. Yeah. Okay. That's considered inside information, right? We hung out with a lot of people there, man. Like, and there was some mistakes made, right? Like, there was, like, NCAA it's a really tough thing. Like, some of the rules and what goes on and your associations with people, and you're out in nightclubs with people, and you're buying liquor and they're buying liquor, and you're going to after parties with people. It was you could look into any NCAA program and see that, and you'd have to shut down you'd have to shut down basketball for a year. So the media was, so here's the deal, right? When you look at the media, you got Wojo covering us. You got Andy Katz covering us. You have Risha Candidate covering us, ESPN. You got the other guy who's on Fox now.
Yeah, Smith. Yeah.
Covering us.
Monsters.
Like,
they're monsters now.
You had monsters of the industry who were with us during that time. Listen, they're unbelievable people, but we created those monsters. Because they had a lot of content to cover, right? Like, that's really what it came down to. Like, they used Fresno as a launching point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's true, though.
Yeah,
I think because it was I want to say Rafer was only there 1 year, right?
I think Rafe was there too.
Was he too?
I think plus he was at the junior college for a year.
Right.
Rafer was there, and my history with Rafer is, as I grew up, as I've grown up over the years, my perspective has changed drastically. Like, I never got along with Rafer. Much more my own doing probably than Rafer's. And in hindsight, looking back, and I tell every kid that I talk to about this, like, he was a playground legend. He was the original and one. He was Skip to my Lou. Yep. But he also was probably the most fundamentally sound, hardest working guard that I've ever played with. Like, he put in the time necessary. But like, my relationship today, like, I am unbelievably close with Woj. Me and Woj, our relationship has continued since Fresno. Woj, during my darkest, lowest moments in life, Woj would reach out and find me. Andy Katz lives in Newport, Rhode Island, which is very close to my home, so I still see Andy. Risha, I was close to while she was at ESPN. So a lot of those relationships that were going on back then have continued or evolved into very close friendships later in life.
I love it. I mean, it's just great memories with the Dogs. And like, you're right, those were monsters now. Those are big names, and especially in basketball. I want to get into the documentary just real quick a little bit. Watching the draft process, everybody, watching your brother and your wife and seeing people's reaction to draft picks, I noticed that what they shot in or what they show, you're very relaxed, you're getting dressed, you're calm. Like, what was going through your head? Because I know we talk plenty of the big leaguers that get drafted for Major League Baseball, and we've had a few just say, like, how's that guy going in front of me? Like, I'm way better than that guy. Like, what was your mindset through the draft?
It was an unbelievably tough draft for me because look at the guards, right? You had guys like Darren Davis, Steve Francis, Jason Terry, John Celestin, William Avery, who was at Duke. You had like it was a very guard heavy draft, and I believe 7 or 6 guys in my position were drafted before me in that draft. but all very valid, right? Like the only one I look back on, like William Avery at Duke, I destroyed him. You know what I mean?
And
like
that was a televised game too, right?
Yeah,
At number, like or was that a tournament game?
Yeah, it was the Alaskan shootout.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, and like I gave Duke everyone they put on me. I gave them the business. Like they had no shot. But like Andre Miller and Steve Francis and Baron Davis, like those guys are horses, and all the guys that were drafted before me, I was expected. I knew because of my workout with Denver that Dan Issel was probably going to take a chance on me. So I was somewhat comfortable thinking that, the 33rd pick, that I would fall to Denver.
It happened though. You got, what I mean? And like there was a sense of relief, I think, and that you made it, and like kind of redemption too. Like you mentioned earlier, coming with BC and, having to deal with that situation and what it did to the family's name and how you had to wear that. I can't imagine how good that must have felt, and then the story starts to unfold with, the rookie season with Denver, and, you have some great mentors to take care of you, and obviously getting into Boston, you start to just see some serious stories. I know you get this all the time. Everything I've seen, people bring up, the Oxy dealer outside the Garden, and I mean, man, it's just to hear you talk now in the place you're in. I love that it's such a positive now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dark world, right? Like I was a professional athlete, but also like a real sick drug addict. And managing those two worlds are unbelievably challenging. Like it's hard enough to be a professional athlete. Never mind, throw in, 1,600 milligrams of OxyContin a day. And everything that comes along with that, like meeting drug dealers and putting money away, hiding money, hiding pills, shipping pills all over the country to meet me in different places so I'm not sick. Just absolutely exhausting.
It's almost more work than actually playing basketball.
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's way more work than playing basketball. Basketball was easy. It was, that's a whole nother level of commitment and deceit and pain and struggle. And it's ugly. It's an ugly world. But just to retrace a little bit and go back, like Fresno made me, like, if I'm not the 33rd pick in the NBA draft, if I don't have, Mike DeManuel and Andrea DeManuel, who I lived in their home and they took care of me. I'm not the 33rd pick in the draft if I don't have Tamadachi, right? And that family, Ted and his and that place to go to, and the love and care that those people had for me in Fresno. Like if I don't, I became part of people's family when I was there, and that's what gave me the ability to continue to push through and to end up being the 33rd pick in the draft.
I wish I would have known. I would have had you over for dinner whenever you wanted.
Totally.
Through all that, and like all the stories, I mean, everybody, I don't know who hasn't seen the documentary or read your book. Your book's outstanding. A Basketball Junkie. All the stories that, being in Modesto and, the leaving with your family at the airport, and like I'm thinking about it, like it's tragic what happened to your career, and not tragic, but like, what could have been the accomplishments you didn't get. But what's even more tragic, and I think I've heard you talk about this, is like what your family had to endure. Never mind basketball.
That's why I love what I do today, right? Like, as I'm talking to you, I'm sitting at one of my wellness centers in my car outside, and I have 24 people who live here right now, and 24 people have been dropped off here, and I've been given the responsibility to to take care of their loved ones. And, you know, to go through what I went through and then to be given that responsibility today, is a huge, it's a huge responsibility. And I say this all the time, like, it's so beautiful to help someone get sober, but what's even more beautiful is to watch their family see them sober. And because if anyone that's ever suffered from drug addiction or loves someone suffering from it, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child, right? Like, that's, I don't know if you guys are parents yet,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. And, you know, to see people come here and have the, you know, an unbelievable life that they've created, but they have this one son or daughter that struggles. You struggle with them. So to give back and to be part of that process is amazing.
Yeah, Jake and I were talking before. You know what book would be good would be the book of Heather Herren and her perspective on
totally.
everything.
Does she ever go out and speak on her own too? I mean, I can imagine what she could. No,
she never has. She never was into it. You know, she's very involved at my wellness centers. You know, she helps a lot of families and sits with a lot of people. You know, we've been so public with it. You know, Heather has a better story to tell, right? Like, that's the reality. When it comes to drugs and alcohol and the struggle, you know, Heather had a front row seat, and she's got a better story to tell than I do. It's just, you know, because I played basketball, because I made it to certain levels of basketball, I've had a platform, and I've been given a platform to talk about it. And, you know, the whole goal when it came to this was to really make people aware and kind of break the stigma down. You know, and Heather's face and my face have kind of been very public out there and as a family. And you know, I believe that, you know, we've turned this tragedy, you know, into, you know, something special. But again, and I'm not saying this, like, if you do your research and listen, like, I'm not saying this because I'm on a Fresno podcast. Like, Fresno, everything Fresno did for me, I'm here today because of Fresno. Like, John Benegas, my counselor, you know, like I said, Ed Ferreira, the trainer. You know, there's so many people that, like, cared for me and loved me when I couldn't love myself, and, you know, introduced me to recovery. I was introduced to recovery in Fresno. I used to go to an AA meeting across the street from City Lights, and in a trailer where people, you could still smoke in AA meetings. So here I was, this young kid, you know, going to AA meetings in Fresno across the street from City Lights.
And then I know, being a fan and seeing you go through those struggles at Fresno State, I know it never stopped us from believing in you and knowing what type of player you were and type of person you were. And, you know, I thank you for, I think you are a big part of changing the game of Fresno State basketball here. And I appreciate that as a fan.
Well, you know, I think, listen, I grew up blue collar, right? Like, my mom had my brother when she was 17 and me when she was 21. We started off in housing projects, and I watched my family and my parents kind of create a better life for us. That's the least I could do for Fresno, right? Like, the passion and go out there and be a reflection of the community, like, as far as my work ethic and my passion for winning. You know, Fresno, like I said, and I don't say this lightly, like, Fresno, if I never went to Fresno, I don't think I would ever played in the NBA. So, you know, the fans, the energy, the culture, the atmosphere, the salt of the earth, the blue collar, like, even like the wealthy in Fresno, you know, like, they were always blue collar, right? Like, you never felt like you were around, like, bougie type high wealth, and they had plenty of it. I never met a rich farmer until I went to Fresno.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, people make money from farming?
I knew coming on that plane, that's all you see is all the farmland too.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, farmers like drive Bentleys for real? Like, how did that happen? And I was just clueless. I didn't even know what a farm to me was. Like a poor guy on the East Coast who has like a thing with animals.
Yeah.
So like, I had no idea. But yeah, no, it's Fresno. Like, it's the best memories I've had in my life around the game of basketball. It's when I look back at basketball, like my career, it's Fresno. I don't think Boston Celtics. I don't think Denver Nuggets. I don't think Europe. Like, when I think of basketball, I think of Fresno.
Bulldog born, man.
Well,
Bulldog bred.
I think most of us, I know at least my generation, when we think of Fresno State basketball, you're definitely at the top, if not the top, that we think about.
And I know they had a couple. They've finished strong here. They had a couple big wins at the late, but I know we're close on time here. I just I was thinking about how you do all this, how you do, the Herren Talks and the Herren Wellness, and for people out there, the first day film, definitely need to go check that out. You're knocking on 13 years of recovery, being sober here in August. Is all the speaking and everything you do, like, because it's a lot. You do a lot. You give back a lot. Is it therapeutic for you? Is that part of your recovery process? Is that what keeps you in check sometimes?
Initially, right? Like, I had to kind of, I had to taper somewhat and dial it back a little bit. I was doing about 250 speaking events a year. That's a lot.
Yeah.
When you're speaking 250 times a year, there were days I was doing 3 events a day. I was in 5 states in 5 days. So I had to dial it back somewhat because I saw that I was putting my recovery at risk, being out there as much as I was. That being said, like, the education around it and the awareness that we've been able to create over the last 10 years doing it, I believe it's had, impact on the way people talk about this and look at it, and treat it in a sense. And now, on my 10-year sober anniversary, I started this company, Herren Wellness, and, like I said, 24 people living at the Massachusetts location, 21 people living at the Virginia location, and to think, I was talking to my wife and I think in the whole Herren umbrella, Herren Talks, Herren Project, Herren Wellness, I think there's like 100 employees, and to think that, I've created something, with 100 employees, and 13 years ago, me and Heather were on food stamps,
That's crazy.
And some nights no lights and some nights no heat. So the impact, the change that recovery has given not only me but my family, and it has been, nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. I love the story. I love the full circle and going through some of those bottoms to kind of, the pot sink, room, and there's just some brilliant stuff in there, and I'm just glad that like you've said in the past, you've got 2 different, marriages basically, when as an addict and, now in recovery. I love that stuff. And I really like recently, in the last couple of years of the first day film and first day concept of going back to prevention.
Yeah.
It's really powerful stuff. If anybody has some time, they definitely need to go. I mean, it's cheaper than going to the movies. With what we had in this pandemic this last year, it's like the timing. I know it came out in, I think, 2019. It's really powerful stuff.
Well, as a person in my position, right? Like I've presented in front of 2 million kids, right? And it got to the point where I was saying to myself, I have this platform. I have the ability to reach and to educate, and telling my story, which is Unguarded, as impactful as it was for people, families who struggle, people who struggle, I don't believe it was as impactful for middle school or high school kids. They would always reach out to me and say, hey, thanks for telling your story. I'll pray for you. Or, you know, I'll follow your career. I hope you stay sober. But it was never anything about them. And I said to myself, I got to change it. I got to change the way I present. I got to change the way I communicate with middle school and high school kids. And I always said that, you know, we put so much focus on the worst day when it comes to drugs, and we don't talk about the first day. We don't talk about why people begin to struggle. We talk about how it looks like when they end. And it's really hard for any kid to identify with a heroin addict or someone who's really struggled in their life. Like no 14-year-old kid is going to see some of the decisions they're making now impact them the way it impacted us. And so to dial it back and talk about self-esteem and self-worth and confidence and, you know, your ability to talk about it and be brave and really dive into the first day and find your why, has been very, very impactful for kids all across the country.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's outstanding, and seriously, it's very powerful stuff. I really enjoy it. That's firstdayfilm.com for everybody out there that's listening. You can also go check out, get his book, Basketball Junkie. You can visit herrenwellness.com, herrentalks.com, herrenproject.org, and again, firstdayfilm.com. Chris, this has been awesome. We are huge fans.
Yes.
Growing up, watching you guys play as kids, this was awesome for me, and obviously following you and watching everything that I can find on you. It's none of it gets old. I love hearing all the stories, but I also just love the place that you're in now, and I wish you continued success in your sobriety. If you're ever in Fresno, you got my number now.
Yeah, no doubt.
Let's get together. We grab an In-N-Out burger or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
Listen,
I love it. I love it. I love your passion for it. It means a lot to me. You know, just to hear both of you talk about, you know, growing up and the passion and the energy that was put into Fresno State basketball back then. It's something that I'm very proud of. It's something that I'm extremely grateful to be part of. And it's something that will live in my heart forever. You know, if you know, you come into my house, right? To me, it's very telling. You won't find a Celtics sweatshirt. You won't find Nuggets. You won't find any European teams. You'll find Fresno State gear. You know, I'm very proud of being a Bulldog, and I'll always be that, and I'll always carry that pride with me.
Yeah, no, that's the shit right there.
I think that goes both ways. I think we're very proud to have the opportunity to watch you play and come to Fresno State, and you have the support of this community just as day one as you do now. So
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Chris, you have a good one, sir.
All right, take care.
Bye. Can you say wow? Can you say wow?
That was just
That was good.
just a privilege, man. Like,
I don't know if I know you, me too. I don't know if we've ever been so nervous.
yeah, when I got the green light on this like 3 weeks ago, or it was almost a month now. That's all I've been doing.
Yeah.
But again, no bullshit. Growing up, that was a hard ticket to get. I remember when we got them.
I was so glad my grandpa had season tickets.
Sitting up at the top, like, it was just nuts, man. It was an electric atmosphere, and you know, again, I go back to Unguarded, and I can see in his face when he's, you know, saying, I see faces in the seats, and you know, I remember being.
He saw me. I know he did.
He pointed you out. I just remember being in those seats. You know, we only went to a handful of games that we could go to. That's how hard tickets were to get. But when you went, it was electric, and you know, his relationship with Tark is definitely something tight. And there's a tribute he did at Coach Tarkanian's funeral service that's on YouTube, and it was awesome to hear him speak on it, and that was just fun, man. We've been very lucky so far, and another good guest for the show, and just a great bulldog, and we're reaching out to some more past bulldogs that we can try to get on the show, but that was just awesome, dude. Just being fans of bulldog and listen, we've been on here talking about how not fans of basketball we are, but
That's now though.
Yeah.
The game was so different back
It was
then.
different. It was different.
I mean, nothing against Fresno State basketball now. It might be different because the fans, the community might be different now.
Well, in the climate we're in now,
then.
Obviously the last year or two
But
has been a little
Selland
different.
Arena, I mean, nothing against the Save Mart Center because it's right there.
It's beautiful too.
But the atmosphere at Selland Arena was hands down. There's second to none. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and like I make no mistake, like Selland Arena just the place. I remember in college going to Falcons games.
Yep, Fresno Falcons.
You know, for cheap.
Yeah.
So it just, that place has had some, you know, good memories for me.
Yeah, me too.
That was awesome to hear him talk. And there's so much to his story. You know, we were allotted a half hour. We got a little bit more, thank God. But there's so much to cover. You know, we really wanted to make sure we honed in on his time at Fresno State and
something different.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure he's been asked every question in the Sun. But yeah, that was fun, man. And I hope I hope everybody enjoyed that
as much as we did, because we did.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. Another fun episode. That's the HIT.OR.DIE Podcast.
HIT or die.